Here we are again. It's the 14th of October, and my name's Noel. I'm your host. I've got a great guest this evening, somebody I've wanted to meet for a long time. I've heard his name whispered in awe by people. Who's Fat Tony? Welcome. Who's not fat at all. So we were just talking before the show about what that is. We'll get to know him in a short while. Let me just do a little bit of business here to set us all up. So this is live. If you're listening to it on a Wednesday evening, it'd be lovely to get your input. We stream on various channels. So we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, and we're on Twitter at the moment. So my team will be scanning those streams, and you can drop some comments in there, and they'll ping them over to me. You can also give me a call, 07506 319 745. That's +44 if you're calling from outside the UK, and you can WhatsApp me so you can save yourself money. It'd be great to hear from you if you've got any questions. Enough of that. I get bored of saying all this stuff, but I have to say it because it'd be really lovely to have people's interactions. If you're listening to this any other time than a Wednesday evening, don't call that number. I'll be asleep, probably in bed or something. I won't be happy if you call me, but you're welcome to call me while the show is live. Anyway, enough of me. Here we are with Tony. Hello, Tony.
Hiya, you're very trusting giving out your mobile number.
I know.
You not get like inappropriate texts.
I get lots of inappropriate texts.
I can imagine.
But the great thing about having phones, you can block. You know, I teach all my clients. How are you?
Good to have you. I'm really good. I'm really, really good. Yeah.
How's your week been? Tell me about how's it been? All this pandemic nonsense.
Kind of like at the beginning, I could we had the build up to it, and then we went into lockdown, and I kind of my world up to that point was so busy, so busy. I suddenly got really small, but there was something really magical about the fact that it got so small so quick. And it was a case of looking at what you have got instead of what you haven't got.
Yeah.
And because I work a 12-step program, I'm in recovery. I've been in worse places than lockdown. You get what I mean? And lockdown for me was a breeze, and it kind of was like, okay, I don't have to get up and go anywhere today. Okay, right. I don't have to go and perform at the weekend like a show pony. I don't have to do any of that stuff. So I kind of really embraced it. And it went on for 2-3 months. And then it kind of was like, okay, I've had enough of this now. And then I got really scared about coming out of lockdown.
Right.
I thought, oh my God, we've got to go back to real life. And I kind of didn't want it to happen in a way, because I kind of just thought, I don't want to go back to that life that I had before. Yeah. In the sense of, I was spending 500 quid a week on taxis. Yeah. I live in central London. I could walk everywhere in 15 minutes. It's just insane. And, that's £2,000 a month. And I was just like thinking, my God, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Yeah. That's, so I didn't want to go back to that kind of lifestyle. And coming out of lockdown, it's been very, very busy. Very busy. And, but very, very, I'd say exciting in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I'm not liking this new forced, like the new part of lockdown we're going to go into, because, things were just getting not normal, because that normal doesn't exist anymore, but things were getting okay. And now we've been put back into this world of uncertainty, and I don't like uncertainty.
Yeah.
I like change, but I don't like uncertainty.
It is a bit confusing at the moment, I have to say. And
yeah.
So I've got this NHS app thing so I scan into, and it keeps sending me these messages like your alert level has changed, but it's not. It's just a test.
Yeah,
I can feel myself just go, whoa, hang on, what's happened? And it's like there's a lot of that going on for me at the moment. This sort of, oh, hang on, and I'm immediately into the adrenaline and stuff like that.
I kind of just think that it's kind of, I had it. I got COVID quite early on.
Did you?
Yeah, I got it the 3rd week of March. I did we call it, so I did a party, and we call it the COVID party because everyone at that party called COVID. But I got it that week, like the 3rd week in. All my friends started going down with it,
right,
one by one, and then I got it, and I had a headache a severe headache for a week, and I then kind of got flu symptoms. But because I have a really bad asthma from years of abuse and like just a weak chest, straight away my doctor was like, I'm going to put you straight onto steroids. So I went straight onto steroids and then antibiotics. And then it went. After like 6 days, it went. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did like a big live feed for someone in my back garden on the Friday night. And I went to bed that night and suddenly, boom, 2 o'clock in the morning, those awful fever dreams where someone's got a big pair of scissors and they cut your whole life up into tiny little bits and then blew it in your face. Because my thinking had gone out the window, and I had such a severe fever for 5 days. Then on the Tuesday, my doctor said to me on the phone, "Okay, if your fever's up in the morning, you've got to go into hospital. We've got to take you in." And by this point, I was like, I was ready to go, and the fever broke overnight.
Right.
Higher power stuff, but it knocked me for 6 for about a month.
Right.
I
was going to say, did you have that long tail recovery? Because a lot of people have the exhaustion, the tiredness, the pains in the muscle joints.
I've still got a little bit of the exhaustion to a certain extent. But you know what? Since then, I've changed my diet. I've changed the way I live. Yeah. I've gone fully keto. I've lost 9 kilos in weight. Yeah. So I've just changed the way I am. Yeah. And it's kind of been a positive thing, but. I don't want to go back to that.
No. And what about the sort of emotional responses? Because some people are getting these post-viral signs from having a bit of depression and anxiety. Have you been okay with around that sort of
stuff? The depression side of things, I've never been a depressive person. It happened once or twice a year where I go into a lull, and I haven't had that.
Okay.
I kind of just, for me, where the place that I come from was a place of every day all I ever thought about was death. So today I take life as it comes, and I try to live it to the full. Even if I'm feeling low, I don't really ever get ill or sick. So that knocked me having the COVID. Of course. And then of course, it was like for ages afterwards, I was like, did I have it? Was it this? Was it that? And then I had COVID tests, and I still have the antibodies. And then I was in Ibiza in I think it was in Ibiza in June, was it? June. Yeah, in middle of June. No, August, sorry. And I still had antibodies. I had a test because I went to do a talk in a rehab, and I still had the antibodies, which I was very happy about.
That's great. That's great. That's one of the things that they're talking about. I've had the test done because I was fairly sure I'd had the COVID thing, and it turns out I didn't. Did you have the swab test or? I've done the swab test. I also had some blood taken just to see if I had the antibodies, because I'd had a bit of illness, and I thought, oh well, let's find out. And I was clear on both. In fact, I've got some swab tests in my fridge at the moment because
know what? Everyone says, it's like lots of people are coming back clear. Lots of people are saying, they didn't realize they had it. It's kind of just different strokes for different folks. There is no. Okay, this is the way it is. Do you get what I mean? Because I didn't lose my taste or my sense of smell. That never went.
Yeah.
Like, everything else was much more severe, like the fever and stuff. But it's
literally just before the show started, my brother called me to tell me he'd been in isolation for the last couple of weeks, and his wife had it and stuff like that, and she did have it. She had to go into hospital. So I think it's around. It's definitely around at the moment, and you can sort of feel, I think, at the moment. I don't know if you feel it as well, but I can certainly feel that people have become more anxious again. And
there's so much anxiety around. There really is. I think it's because people don't know. They don't know what's going to happen over the coming weeks. People are losing their jobs. They're not so much losing loved ones right now. Yeah. This was that was the old COVID as such. The new COVID way, people are losing their jobs. They're losing their livelihoods. There is no furlough. They're losing their houses. There's so much uncertainty. There really is. And I kind of think that brings on bigger ailments than actually catching COVID in itself in a lot of ways.
Yes, yeah.
Especially for people suffering with mental health, man. It's a good time.
I think, the fear of economic insecurity is a really significant trigger for a lot of people, a really significant trigger.
Yeah. I just think that if we're going to go into let's just go into it and just do it and get over it. But I don't see what the point of doing Groundhog Day is. Yeah. We went into lockdown throughout summer, then suddenly winter, it came back, and it's going to do the same. So how many more lockdowns do we need to have? Yeah. Just to it's like putting a plaster on a really puffy cut.
Right.
It makes no sense unless you clean that cut.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is a lot of us are feeling like, oh, hang on, again, come on, we've done this, haven't we? But I guess we just have to get through this first winter with it. Hopefully there'll be a vaccine in place, but also by then we'll have the experience and we'll no longer be sort of triggered into those anxiety responses.
Yeah, and I just think the further it goes on, the longer it goes on, we won't buy so much into the media and the hype around it.
I don't watch any of the news at all.
Well,
like I've cut it out my life. Absolutely gone.
The sad thing is, you switch on GMTV in the morning. Good Morning Britain or Sky. Sky aren't so bad. Sky are quite factual, but you switch on like Piers in the morning, and all you're doing is getting shot.
No, I don't go anywhere. I never went anywhere near the guy before COVID. I'm certainly not going anywhere near him during COVID. Seriously,
it's such fear mongering, and it's kind
of
You know that.
I agree with you about Sky. I have to say, I found Sky's reporting quite factual and quite grounded.
Yeah.
There's no sensationalism, but I just think there's too much content.
I love Kay. I think Kay's incredible.
Yeah, they've interviewed me a few times. I've been on Sky, and it was they're really good at the sort of what they do. I think really good news network. About you, but let's maybe some people who tuned in know about you. I'm not sure I know you that well. I don't think I've ever met you.
How dare you?
Well, so I want to find out a little bit about you.
Yeah, go on.
Who is this guy, Fat Tony? You're a DJ, I think.
I'm a DJ. I've been a DJ the best part of my life, since I was 15, 16. I kind of, had highs and I've had lows, and I'm having highs again, different types of highs, of course. I'm a DJ, and I'm 13 and a half, well, 3/4 on the 10th of January, I'll be 14 years clean and sober from drink and drugs. And I try to do the best by people that I can today. That's great. That's kind of it.
So tell me about sort of working in the arts and being a DJ. How did you get involved in that? What was the sort of routine for you?
For me, my doorway into that world was I always, from the age of 14, I would always lie about my age. And I fell into going to nightclubs very early.
Right.
I suddenly made nightclubs my life.
Is this in London or?
In London.
London. Were you a London boy?
I was born in Pimlico, where I'm living now. But I'm like a homing pigeon. I've lived all over the world, and I grew up.
One of my favourite films ever is based in Pimlico. You know the one I mean. Passport to Pimlico.
Passport to Pimlico. It's insane. I love that film.
The best film ever, I think.
Well, my dad's family are all from Pimlico.
Right.
And my mum was from Chelsea. So I was born in the house across the road, and I never knew that. When I got this house, my mum went, "Oh my God, you were born in that house there," and I was like, "Don't lie." So I've come full circle, and so I grew up. I'm born in Pimlico and grew up in Battersea. So I'm a Londoner, London born and bred.
What sort of environment were you brought up in? What was it?
Oh, we basically lived in a council house in Lavender Hill on an estate called Wycliffe Estate. Yeah. It was a new build back then, and I mean, obviously, my mum and dad, when they sold it, they bought it for about, I think they bought it for about 70,000, and then they sold it for two mil or something like that, ridiculous. As Battersea went up and up and up, and wanted to be the place to live. So I grew up there and kind of hung out in the King's Road. From the age of 14, I was kicked out of school. I would pretend to go to school because my dad didn't know. And I would leave the house in the mornings and I would go to King's Road, Chelsea. And at that time, as you know, King's Road was social media. King's Road was Facebook. Everybody would walk up and down King's Road to be photographed. It was just after the punk era. So it was verging on new romanticism. It was the place to be seen. And I got a job working in a place called the Great Gear Market.
Yeah. People literally used to drive up and down.
Yep.
Open top cars and stuff like that, hoping to be spotted. I mean, he was like mad. It was insane.
Yeah. It was Facebook, without the negativity. Yeah. And, so people would go there and hang out. So that's where I kind of got into that clique of people that wanted to go out clubbing. So I started going out clubbing at a very young age. Then these two guys, Rusty Egan and Steve Strange, opened a club called The Playground on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
At the Lyceum Ballroom where the Lion King is now. And I I was 16 and I basically went to them and said, oh, I'm going to open a club on the same night. Like the most precocious 16-year-old you've ever met. And Steve and Rusty were like, well, don't do that. Why don't you just work for us on the door? And I was like, fine. So I got this door job of picking people on the door. At 16. I talked my way into it. And then, of course, you know, that wasn't enough for me. Every week I would say, oh, people are leaving. People are leaving because the music's rubbish. And this is Rusty's job. And this is what Rusty did. He's a DJ. And it was like, Rusty, everyone hates your music. And I literally would say that to him week after week. And then one week he said, well, if you think you could do better, why don't you do it? So the next week I trotted with 4 records, 4 12-inch singles. And that was it.
Right.
And then, you know, within a month, I had my own residency on a Tuesday night at the WAG Club. Then I had one on Saturday. Then I was flying to New York every month. And then it went to every 2 weeks to work for Steve Rebell at Palladium. And that was it. That was my career. And from there on, it just went skyrocketed.
And how did you find that? I mean, because I remember those days as well. And obviously, Steve Strange, was an absolute hero, etc. You know, the whole New Romantics thing was big for me, huge, bigger than the punk stuff. The punk stuff was all right, but I sort of didn't really like it. I liked some of it, but the New Romantic stuff was huge. I mean, it was like transformed things, I seem to remember. And sort of, certainly in the UK in that time, it also transformed concepts of what it was to be a guy. And it was, you know, the way we could dress changed radically and all that sort of stuff. And it was massive. It was massive.
I mean, I was very fortunate, you know, the circle of friends that I fell straight in with was with my best friend, George, as in Boy George. And, you know, I first met him when I was 15.
Right.
And I think the first thing I ever said to him was, he was on the King's Road, and I remember saying, who does your hair? It's shit. And that was the first thing I ever said to him. And of course we had an argument and become best friends ever since. And, you know, so I kind of grew up within that circle of so much creativity and so much flamboyance and so much of being who you are. You know, everyone had their purpose except me.
Right.
I was the one that was just the loudmouth, the one that wanted to cause all the drama, even back then. And, you know, so clubbing became who I was. It was very, very, very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I can really identify with it because I grew up in Birmingham and I remember when the Rum Runner opened.
I used to go to the Rum Runner.
Of course I did. Yeah, absolutely.
I had friends called Jane Carn and Patty Bell who had Carn and Bell.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I worked with them in the Great Gear Market, so I kind of was always up in Birmingham.
And I remember seeing Duran Duran when they were just first starting and they were starting at the Rum Runner and stuff like that. And I must have been 13, 14 when I started going to the Rum Runner. My sister worked there and stuff like that. And I could get away with cross-dressing and all that sort of stuff. And it was a really cool environment to be in. And you could just be free and be yourself, which was, you know, in Birmingham in particular, it was sort of like taking your life in your hand if you were different in any way. But yeah, I mean, they were very exciting times, I think.
They really were. I mean, you know, you look back on it now and we're in 2020 and our world is in such tatters and we don't have those tribes and we don't have that creativity. It's been kind of drained from us over the last 30 to 40 years. You know, it's kind of just been drip fed away. And, you know, I really think that what we really need right now is those tribes. We really need that movement. We really need to feel that we're a part of something.
Yeah,
that's what's
I mean, I get it. I mean, I think certainly the energy I remember from that time was people were doing it because it was rebellious, but it was also creative and people wanted to express themselves. And there wasn't, I don't remember anybody talking about a career in it.
No,
it was what you did.
It was all organic. You know, for me, I never wanted to be a DJ. I never set out to be a DJ. It just happened because that's, you know, what happened. You know, today it's all about what you can do in the palm of your hand. Back then, you needed to do something to have a platform to be heard. You had to either dress the most outrageously, be the most outrageous, be the loudest, be the funniest. You had to be seen. You had to have a voice to be seen. Today, you don't need that. Today, you can do that in the palm of your hand, And it's so, you know, the creativity's like lost. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big Instagrammer. I Instagram all day long, but you know, and for me, that's kind of another outlet of creativity to a certain extent. But you know, there's so much more than that.
Yeah.
That we're lacking.
I'm intrigued because I know you're in recovery and you've mentioned it, but I guess some of the challenges that you face around the using probably started around about that time as well. So
yeah, 100%. I at that time I was drinking heavily. Right. I come from a very big alcoholic family, so the signs were always there. So growing up as a kid, you know, my dad would always binge drink. I had alcoholic aunties that would always come and visit that weren't allowed in the house for various reasons. And, you know, so that I was always drawn to that energy. And I was, you know, so straight away we would go to a pub in the King's Road called the Chelsea Potter, and I would always be the last to leave.
Yeah.
I was always the one that didn't have a stop button, even back then at 16. And drinking become the force of it all, because, you know, I had, at the age of around 10, there was a lot of sexual abuse going on for me. And I was abused. So I became fat as a shield to protect myself so that no one ever came near me.
Yeah.
And of course, then being called fat behind your back and all of the stigma that comes with being fat, I kind of lost the weight, but then chose alcohol to really deal with it. Alcohol become the first crutch. Right. So I thought. And then, so, you know, the natural progression was from there. As I started DJing and working in clubs, people would say, oh, do you want a line of this? It will prolong the amount you can drink, or it will sober you up.
Yeah.
And then that was it. You know, it kind of just went from there. It was never a problem for the first, I'd say, first 6 to 8 years wasn't a problem. There was no problem.
Was it normalized in the sort of group that you were with? It was sort of this.
Well, very much so. You know, London at that time, drugs were very, very normalized in the sense that most people, the majority of London at that point were like on heroin.
Right.
You know, London, it's very hard to explain to a lot of people that was not from that era. But, you know, today, if you think about going out in London, you can go out in Shoreditch, you can go out in Peckham, you can go out anywhere, basically. Back then, you had one place, and it was called the West End.
Yeah.
So everybody knew each other in Soho. And when a new drug come along, it would get that Soho by literally by the balls. So everyone would be on that drug. So smack was a really big one. I never did smack. I was always on about uppers, not downers for me.
But also, I think when people don't these days, people understand heroin is a you know, a dangerous drug to get involved with, particularly street heroin.
Yeah.
But in those days, and again, most people don't realise, but it was very naive. You know,
it was a glamorous thing.
Nobody understood at that.
No, it was very glamorous.
Yeah.
You know, all your big idols, Lou Reed, everybody, you know, all come from that whole heroin era, and you know, people were making songs about it. It was very, very. It was in a very glamorous look to be into, you know, being into heroin.
But also drinking was glamorized as well. I remember
very glamorized.
News with Michael Parkinson, with people turning up who were drunk, and it was sort of okay.
Oh yeah, it was always okay to be drunk. You know, at that point in time, you could switch television on, and you'd be people selling whiskey in adverts and cigarettes still on TV. You know, that was the lifestyle that people.
But I remember, you know, interviews with Grace Jones, for example, where she was completely smashed.
Amazing. Yeah, we should be hitting people on TV.
Exactly. And, you know, clearly out of control on various substances. But that was considered entertainment, which I guess it wouldn't be now. We'd be sort of more cautious about that now. But I think in those days, there was a very different understanding of things.
But in those days, it was shocking.
Right.
And people loved to be shocked.
Yeah.
Punk rock was shocking. The Sex Pistols on TV, drunk out their skulls, swearing on national TV. Oh, outrage. You know, that was their platform. That's how it can press. And when it comes to Grace and people like that being drunk, there was always outrage attached to someone being drunk. Today, there's not really outrage attached to it anymore. But what it is it's kind of frowned upon because society doesn't approve of that anymore. But
well, these days, I mean, if you're a celebrity and that happens, the first thing your agent is going to be looking at is getting you treatment. I mean, it's just
100%, because we live in a world of social media, so that stuff will be regurgitated all day long, bigger and bigger and bigger, made to be big. So the first thing they're going to do is, right, okay, we need to remove you from the situation.
Find a rehab, all that sort of stuff.
Back then, the worst, the only thing bad could have happened would you have been on the front page of the news of the world.
Yeah, but that wouldn't have been necessarily a bad thing. Did that fuel your using as well? That part of needing to be a big personality and shock people and top people and all that sort of stuff, was that part of it as well?
I think the thing that fueled my using and my addiction the most was my anxiety around being that person. Suddenly, I'd gone from living on a council estate to suddenly flying on Concorde.
Yeah.
You know, literally within a year. It was insane. I just, I was earning vast amounts of money and traveling the world. And suddenly I'd been projected into this career that I didn't really want to be in. I still wanted to be there at the party.
Yeah.
But, the job kind of was at the party, and I kind of would always confuse the two. So, even when I was working, I kind of would think that I was still partying, and
So was there something going on whereby the using was somehow helping you because of the problems around the esteem and not feeling comfortable and authentic?
I suffer with imposter syndrome. I always have done.
Have you? Right.
Addiction's in my blood. It's kind of in my wiring, the way I am. So an addict's brain, I suffer with uncommon sense. Most people have common sense, but they'll say,
it's a nice way of saying it, Tony.
Yeah, you got to get up at 6 a.m. to do an interview with and so you'd go to bed at 10 and set your alarm. I'd stay up till 6 a.m.
Did anybody know that you were struggling? Was anybody aware of it, or were you so good at keeping them away that they didn't?
Oh, I was really good. Really, really good. I had a baseball bat with me at 24 hours a day. Anyone that came close got battered with it. It was Did
you know you were struggling? Because I think often a lot of people don't know, but did you know?
Yeah, I did know. Yeah, I knew for a very long time how much I was struggling.
Wow.
You know what?
Tony, that must have been really difficult. It's just because clearly to be in touch with the pain that you're experiencing, and yet you've got this really strange life where you're getting all this feedback that you must be amazing. You're a wonderful, amazing, talented person, yet you're not feeling that at all.
The worst thing in the world, as I always tell people, if someone tells me they love me or they love what I do, I run a mile. If you come up to me and you tell me you hate me and you think I'm shit, I will take you on holiday.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I've always been. And, it's only the recent, the last 5 years, maybe even less, that I can actually accept that love, and I can say to people, thank you very much. Thank you for coming up and telling me you think what I do is wonderful, or you love my memes, or, it happens all the time, and I've learned to accept it. Because
in a sense, the success was fueling the really crappy feelings about yourself.
It really was, and what it was doing was the faster I was going that way, the more I was going this way inside. I was going down, I was going up. So, the drink and drugs just numbed the pain of everything, of the sense of, okay, you're going to get found out. No one believes in you. So I used drink and drugs to cushion everything. Absolutely. So I didn't.
It's very familiar to me from my clinical work. People turn up to my practice and they tell me that what they were trying to achieve with the using was numbness, which I think to people who are not addicts, they don't get it. They think, oh, you must have had a lot of fun, but it isn't fun. The using of an addict is not fun.
It really isn't. At first, of course, it's fun at first, because that's you buying into it. If it wasn't fun from day one, you wouldn't do it. It's the actual full sense of being. So that whole, it's not fun. At the end, the last 20 years of my using was not fun.
Some people the last 20 years of my using.
Well, I used every day for 28 years.
Yeah, right, exactly. I know exactly. I get it.
Yeah. And even when I was asleep, I was
used for 30 years, so I get it. Do you know what I mean? And certainly, I would say the last 15 years of my using, every time I used, felt shit.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And I didn't want to do it, and I felt compelled, and I felt forced to do it, and I had no good results. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I share this a lot. I think, the only bit that I got high off was the chasing of the drug.
Was it?
Calling them constantly, getting it.
So that euphoric recall thing.
Yeah, and then when I got it, I thought, oh no, I don't want this.
Yeah.
Because I knew it wouldn't stop. So I would hold it in my hand for like an hour, and then I would be off. And then I wouldn't stop for 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, sometimes at my worst. So the only good bit was really waiting for it to arrive.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it, and it got
very. So in the end, you were using what, alcohol and?
So alcohol was always the level up.
Yeah.
I was addicted to cocaine, crack, crystal meth in the last year of my using, 18 months.
Yeah.
Which was really the one that sent me psychotic.
It's often the case. I've heard that a lot. The crystal meth is the one that breaks people.
I pulled all my teeth out.
Yeah.
I literally sat over the course of about 9 to 10 months, digging at my gums, pulling out my teeth. I had a thing called meth mouth, and my mouth was completely septic, and I thought I had animals living in it.
Right.
And I would dig at the gums and I would pull the tooth loose. And in the end, I had one tooth left. And at the end of my using at the bottom, I would sit playing with, and I would rock psychotically backwards and forwards all the time, thinking that calmed me.
Yeah.
And all I ever thought about was dying every day. Thought about my funeral. I didn't ever think about anything but my funeral, who was going to be there, what songs I wanted playing.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. That was all, all I had to look forward to was that funeral. It was just...
So you've gone from this boy who suddenly seemed to have this hugely amazing life happen, Concord, to a guy rocking stereotypic behavior that you would see on a psychiatric ward.
Yeah, totally. But you know what? I never ended up on that park bench. Right. And also, people always think that, you to really be at rock bottom, you need to be on a park bench, or you need to be homeless and stuff. I'd been homeless many a time. I'd lost houses. I'd got record deals, and I bought the most amazing house, and I lost that within 8 months. I left that house with a mirror. That's all I took, because I lived in this world that everything was throwaway, and I could always get it again. Yeah. And that stemmed from my childhood and the abuse. That childhood trauma kind of dictated so much of who I was and what.
Are you okay to talk about that a bit?
Of course I am.
Yeah. I just want to, for anybody listening, just a little trigger warning. If while you're listening to this, folks, you do get triggered, we're going to put some links to support organisations up on the program and on the social media sites. So things like AA, NA, Samaritans, and trauma support groups and sexual assault support groups. But if you are feeling triggered, what I would say to you is reach out to somebody. Do not sit alone with this.
Always pick up the phone.
Absolutely. Reach out and get help. But let's go into a little bit and maybe understand. Yeah, let's go into this a little bit and maybe understand some of this. So these awful things happened to you as a child, and
so I kind of met this guy who showed films in youth clubs, very funnily enough, and he basically he offered me a Saturday job, basically groomed me, abused me for 3 to 4 years, basically was paying me money so that it was like a guilt thing. You know how people are these predators, it's not something that they do lightly. They make a career out of completely, they're predators. Yeah. And so they manipulate you into thinking that you're the one that's doing wrong.
Yeah.
And at the time, my mum had cancer. My dad was a heavy drinker. So there was no one I could go to and say, oh my God, this is happening. But what I did was, at that point in time, at the age of 10 and 11, I thought I was dealing with it. I thought that I was in control of it.
Wow.
I thought, okay, this guy's giving me money. I want more money. Okay, this guy, he'll give me what I want because I will blackmail him, because it was such a warped, twisted situation, and I can't to this day tell you how it ended.
Yeah,
I can't, and I tried. And I'm working with my therapist at the moment. I'm doing drawing.
Yeah,
I'm a 55-year-old. 55-year-old man drawing. I'm doing drawings with my therapist so that I can trigger that part of the brain that doesn't want to let go of what happened.
Yeah.
So I need to know, because I can't remember how it ended.
Yeah.
So, so I became really fat because I didn't want anyone ever to come near me again.
Classic defense, putting on weight so you're being non-sexual and keeping people physically away.
But what also that did was that triggered the first part of my addiction, which was sex. So basically, I found this new way of changing the way I felt. Suddenly, people found me attractive. I had a purpose. I used sex to change the way I felt. I got kicked out of school for having sex with a drama teacher at 14. I then every day would leave school, leave my house.
You ain't, not the teacher.
Both of us. He had to leave and I had to leave. It was.
I'm quite shocked you had to leave. I mean, you were a child.
Because they said that the conversation in the headmaster's office was, Tony doesn't want to be here and we don't want him here. Yeah. So
that's shocking. That's absolutely
shocking. Of course. Those are the times that we lived in. It was kind of like that kind of thing was happening all over, but no one ever talked.
I want to circle back a little bit and just
go on.
Again, for people that might be listening, particularly for those people who might be remembering things that happened to them, or even things that are happening to them right now. Some of the things Tony said are very, very important. Now, I've done forensic work as a psychotherapist, which means I've worked with people who are offenders and have been sent for treatment rather than prison. And I've worked a lot with sex offenders. And what Tony is saying is absolutely spot on. They are thoughtful, they are planned, they are manipulative, and they go through. They do a process called grooming, and very much they will groom the victim into thinking the victim wants this thing to happen. And there's a whole range of strategies. And seriously, folks, if this is happening to you and you're recognizing some of these things, you need to get help with this. You are the victim, you're not the perpetrator. 100%. And you need to step out of this as soon as you can. If tonight triggers you into reaching out for help, then fantastic. But it's not your fault, is what we're here to tell you. All right? There's a perpetrator, somebody's grooming you.
Yeah.
It's their fault. It's not yours.
But I blamed myself.
I'm sure.
The thought process that was put into it, the way my mind was brainwashed, was the fact that I was doing those dirty things. I was the one that had okayed it, and I was the one that kind of made it happen. He kind of did it in a way that he made me. I never had no doubts that I was gay. I always knew I was gay.
Yeah.
And he knew that, but he kind of made it as if that's what gay 10-year-olds do.
So he warped your sense of your sexuality
100%,
as well.
100%.
That's awful. Absolutely. Because again, let's make this really clear. Being gay has nothing to do with abuse. Absolutely nothing. You can be gay and abused. You can be straight and abused. You can be asexual and abused. Abuse is abuse. Abuse is somebody abusing you with their power. And that's what it is. And it should never happen under any circumstances. So, and gay is not a pathology, it's a choice. Well,
100%.
It's part of who somebody is. It's a part of an expression of human sexuality. So, sorry to interrupt, Tony, but I think some of these points need to be made, so that we get them across. So,
I think it's important.
Still blame yourself. I mean, do you still carry that sense?
I carry the sex stigma with me still today, because that's the one that always takes me out, and that's the one that destroys my life.
Is it?
Because that's the one that I'm so scared of intimacy. I'm so scared of all those things, and I'm in a loving relationship with my partner today, and my head can still try and screw things up because I feel that sometimes I'm not worthy. I shouldn't be in this relationship. I shouldn't have been given the love that I get given from him.
Yeah.
And I throw that stuff back in his face quite often. So
it's really sad, that, isn't it? It's really sad what abuse does, is it warps these things that we should just be able to really like. Success and love and intimacy are really beautiful things to have. And because of abuse, that gets warped and we can't authentically and naturally step into them. And I guess the healing process is to learn how to do that, right?
I think the healing process starts at the minute that you get honest about it.
Right.
Then that say, okay, this is what I'm doing. These are my behaviors. and I need to change these behaviors. And these behaviors are learned behaviors, but they're learned from a very bad teacher at the beginning.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying to you? And that person, the way that I was pushed into doing what I was doing, I've carried that all my life. I didn't talk about it till I was 18, and I told one friend. Then I never discussed it ever until I was 33.
Wow.
And then I told my mum. And the only reason I told my mum was because and this sounds really awful, but the only reason I told my mum at that very given moment was I needed money.
Yeah.
And I wanted her to feel sorry for me. So yet it was the first time that I brought the victim to the surface.
Yeah.
Because to that point, I buried the victim. I was the victim, but I owned the victim in the sense of, you know, I thought it was what I did. This is who I am.
Yeah.
This is, I can freely give my soul and everything away to anybody, you know, who doesn't have a name.
Yeah.
Because that was always the way I felt that I could most abuse myself.
Yeah. And addiction, I mean, again, you brought up a really important word and associated with addiction, which is this word intimacy. And it's a very classic thing in addiction that people who are active in their addiction and then in their recovery have profound issues around intimacy and being comfortable around intimacy. And you jokingly described for a long time I had a baseball bat.
Yeah,
it is a really great way of describing it. So, like, if anybody got close, that was the worst thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. No one could ever get close.
Right.
You know, my best friends, like George, I'm writing a book, and George says in the book, you know, at one point in my life, he had to go through 6 different people to get to me, because I surrounded myself with these different walls, and each person played a role in those walls. So all my friends had a purpose. And they were all guarding me because I was in the middle of it all. But I'd learned manipulation at such a young age of how to manipulate things into protection. So I was always protecting myself. And George would always say to me, I'm the one who has security, but yet you've got bigger security around you. And it's like, I was so insecure.
Yes.
Always so insecure.
Absolutely.
And scared of being hurt. That I always, that I would never allow myself to be hurt in that sense, because I never allowed anyone get that close enough.
Yeah. And that sense of disconnection for people, particularly when we're very, very, particularly when we really need help.
Yeah.
It's always when we really need help that you find the person really disconnects the most. You know, it's because of that sense of pain and manipulation and control.
I found it really easy to ask for help about other subjects that weren't real. So I would like make up, my dad just died. So people would feel sorry for me and give me what I needed in the sense of, pity, poor Tony, poor Tony. And that was enough. That would just be the right amount of chocolate sprinkling on top of it, just to carry me through. So I would always make up these big dramas and lies, so people would give me that pity. But it was always the pity for the wrong thing, because I really couldn't never.
Smoke and mirrors, isn't it? It's the magic trick. Watch this hand while this hand is actually doing the real stuff.
I always describe it now when I'm doing talks as I would like 6 little fires just to hide the massive bonfires.
Yes, absolutely. That's right. Classic sort of.
So much smoke, you couldn't see what was really going on. And I kind of like, it was always that way. And then, of course, addiction was far greater than anything else, because the power of my addiction overrode everything.
Right.
So it bled into all of those other factors.
Yeah.
All that stuff would spiral out of control, and I was completely powerless over it. And
that image you gave us, and of you sitting toothless, trying to pull out that final tooth.
Yeah.
Was that the point at which you had what the people call a rock bottom? Was that your rock bottom? Was that the point at which things changed? Is that the way it worked for you?
I had a rock bottom a good 10 years before that. And
Did you? Right.
100%.
Okay.
And when I was in hospital, I'd been given the last rites. My mum and dad, my whole family were at the hospital. That was a rock bottom. And even then I was still using, I still had drugs. I was in hospital for 6 months and I was still having drugs brought at the hospital.
Right.
I could not stop. And, I humanly did everything in my human power to kill myself on a daily basis. And it just would not happen. And so the rock bottom wasn't really a rock. The thing that changed it was a God-given moment. It wasn't a rock bottom. What it was I was in the club, and I'd been out for 3 nights already. And it was a Friday night. It was in a place called The Cross in King's Cross. And they had a back.
I remember The Cross. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It was a Friday night. I was the resident DJ.
Was it previously the Black Cap? No, that was somewhere else.
That was the Central Station down the road. The Black Cap in Camden. The Cross, Bagley's was there. And it was in these railway arches surrounded by palm trees and stuff. And
I remember it, yeah.
A club called Fiction on a Friday. And I was doing this, rocking backwards and forwards, and in the back room, and my partner at that time came in, and I looked at her and I just thought, I can't deal with this tonight.
Yeah.
Because for the 2 years prior to that, every club he came to, he would throw glasses at me or pull me out the DJ box and tell people that, the promoters, you're going to find him dead on the floor. Is this what you want? And basically what he was trying to do was save my life, but I saw it as trying to ruin my fun and get in the way. And that night he came and I thought, why is he here? He's not allowed in here. He's barred. And he came in the back room, and instead of like the usual look at the state of you, where have you been? He literally just put his hand on my shoulder and asked me, literally looked at me and said, what happened to you? And that was it was that one sentence that changed my life. Because
what did that do to you, Tony? Why do you think, on reflection, why do you think that worked?
It was just the right time. He shouldn't have been there. Do you get what I mean? He shouldn't have been there. And it was just like, he got me at that moment, that God-given moment that could change my life. And just by saying what happened to you, I couldn't answer that question. I looked at him and started crying, and I left. And then
so you had no defense against that love and that compassion.
I was a broken man. That was all I had. It was almost like, mercury pouring into a smashed bottle on the floor. Going through. It was like it changed everything. And I just literally thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. And I went and got help on the Monday with my doctor, and he sent me to a drug drop-in centre. And I'd like to say my life changed, but it didn't, because I couldn't let go of who I was. My life was so shit, but it was my shit. Yeah. It was comfort in that shit. And it was like letting go of who this person, who was I going to be without drinking drugs?
Well, exactly. I mean, I think the reality is change actually is frightening, even if it's positive change. And particularly if it has to change our identity and change our sense of self and fundamental things about how we're doing.
What was I going to do without drinking drugs? That's all I did. That was who I was.
Yeah.
So over the next kind of 3 months, I kind of started working on myself slightly. Couldn't get my head around not doing drugs. Couldn't think about how can I stop this. And then what happened was I was going to NA meetings by proxy. Someone said to me, come to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. It's really good to know. There's loads of really hot men there and you get to hold their hand. And I was like, yeah, I'm coming. And I went,
it's our defects that become our healing points.
Yeah, and I'm yet to find that meeting, I may add. Still, there's no magic mythical meeting where there's loads of good looking men. But it's like for me, it was kind of making it. I faked it, and I would go to those meetings. And then what happened was, one Saturday night, I went to a meeting in Frith Street Medical Centre. Yeah. And I thought I'd go for 10 minutes just to shut everyone up.
I've been to that meeting. It's great.
Yeah. Well, sadly, those meetings are no longer there. Yeah. They shut the medical centre. I can't have Narcotics Anonymous meetings in there anymore. Because
when did that happen?
During the pandemic.
Is it? Oh, shit.
Yeah, so that's a real sad thing.
Of course, they've closed all of them, and they've all gone online. That's right.
So,
I forgot there's a pandemic. I was just so into what you were talking about. It's like, oh yeah, there's a pandemic, isn't there? There's this important thing going on.
A big black lady was telling her story, and I just thought, oh God. And I'd already taken her inventory. I'd looked at her moody handbag and I was just whatever. And then she opened her mouth, and everything she came out of her mouth was my story.
Really?
Yeah, everything. And I just related to everything. And I remember leaving that meeting and standing on the railings across the road crying. And I just thought, this is it. This is who I want to be. And a week later, I went away for 6 months to treatment. Right. I went to Bournemouth. And I always say, I'm not sure if the thought of ever having to go back there that's kept me clean.
That's right.
But, you know,
those treatment centres down in Bournemouth are like, whoa, hang on a minute. You wouldn't get me going.
you know, they were like that. But, you know, there's the place I went to called Allington House. And
Right.
I've worked with them ever since. And I went back down there and created a chemsex stroke
Great. Good for you.
treatment centre with the program.
Good for you.
Now, half the people that go through there go through that program,
Yeah.
which is remarkable. It's amazing. And
because
you know,
the chemsex stuff is smashing into the gay men's community
big time.
like nothing else. It's dreadful.
Isn't the word we use anymore. It's more gay lifestyle now.
Yeah.
You know, gay lifestyle issues, because they are gay lifestyle issues.
Yeah.
Chemsex is a really dirty word, and no one really wants to admit that they're a part of that world.
Absolutely.
Gay lifestyle issues. They kind of, oh, that's quite. You know, I don't mind saying that.
Yeah.
So we have this program, and it's been hugely successful.
Brilliant.
It's helping so many people.
Yeah.
So Bournemouth has changed for me in the way I think about it, because it's helping people still. But you know, I went there for 6 months, and when I was leaving, the very last day that I was in treatment, they love to keep people in seaside towns. They love to keep them down there. It's good for their economy. It's good for the treatment centre to have volunteers, you know, to come in and help everyone else. And they were like, listen, we don't think it's a good idea you going back to London. We don't think it's a good idea you going back to DJing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good idea you going back to that relationship. And I literally, I say this all the time, but I literally just sat there and said, I'm not going back to anything. I'm going forward.
Yeah.
Forward to London. I went forward to my career, and I went
Good
forward
for
to
you.
the relationship. The relationship didn't work out because I couldn't be in a relationship at that point in time.
Yeah.
But you know, for various factors. But, you know, I've always gone forward. I talk about the past because it's the past, and that's what it is. It doesn't define who I am today.
Oh, not at all. That's right.
Where I am.
So what are the elements, do you think, these days? What are the sort of core elements for you in terms of what keeps you clean and sober, and then what keeps you grounded? What is working for you these days?
Honesty.
Right.
The big factor, you know.
And how do you do honesty? Because I can't do honesty on my own.
Well, if someone asks me if I'm okay, and I just say, yeah, I'm great, when I'm not,
yeah,
that's dishonest for me.
Yeah.
You know, so if you ask me how I am, and I'm feeling shit, I will tell you. I need to, you know, for me, working with other people is a really big factor for me.
Okay.
You know, I have sponsors. I do a recovery podcast called The Recovery on YouTube, where other addicts.
We'll put a link to it so that people can get access to it without doubt.
What we do is on the recovery is we talk about, you know, I'm very, very blessed that I can go to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting or an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and I can share what's going on for me, especially through this pandemic. It's been a lifeline.
Yeah.
Being able to go somewhere and saying what's going on for me. The majority of people out there don't have that quality of life where they can go somewhere and be honest and say to someone else that's not going to judge them, well, maybe a little bit, but not really judge them, and just literally get that identification.
Yeah.
So what we do with the recovery is we bring that to the table by having a conversation like me and you are having now about addiction. And people relate to it because it's so far. We've had Kelly Osbourne, Russell Brand, Megan Matthews, Brandon Novak, skateboarder called Blondie. So many different people from different walks of life talking about different forms of addiction. It's not all about drink and drugs. Some of it's about mental health. Some of it is about gambling. There's different, you know, so many different avenues. Some people aren't in 12-step programs. Yeah. Some people have done it their own way. So what we're showing with the recovery is that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what people need to hear.
Yeah.
Really important. So for me, by doing a bit like coming on here with you, Noel, this keeps me clean. Yeah. This keeps me clean. By keep talking about the positive things about my life and how my life's changed keeps me.
And if we contrast that with when you were using, because the last thing in the world you'd have ever done when you were using was to open up and say, I feel shit, I feel vulnerable, I feel fake, etc. You said all of those things, that these are real, because these are what human beings feel. And often these are the things, and you also talked about, you know, the dreadful things that happen to you, the abuse, the grooming, etc. And those things somehow, they kept you using because you weren't talking about it, it seems to me.
Exactly, 100%. No, that, you know, those secrets fueled that pain.
Yeah.
You know, those secrets. So today, I think that if I'm 99% of the time honest and not out living with secrets, because those secrets will bleed into everything else. And before I know it, I'm in flow in whether it be, I can meet a group of 6 of my friends. I just like the way I said 6 there. I can meet a group of 5 of my friends because we're in a bubble. And we can all be bitchy, and they could be all bitching about everything, and I will have to be the bitchiest. Straight away, I go straight into that place of flow. Yeah. And then I will go on and on and on. And that will stick with me all day because I am feeling high from being bitchy. Yeah. I can go and have sushi on a Monday. If it's really good, I'll have it Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That's how my disease manifests today, in the sense that I want things that make me either feel really good about myself or make me feel like fucking shit. Sorry for swearing. Shit.
Yes. Fine. We're all adults.
Feel like fucking shit, because it has to be one or the other. Yeah. And you know, so that's why I have to be really aware of today. I have to be on top of this stuff.
But that's a whole lot better, isn't it, than being aware of pulling your teeth out?
100. Listen,
you know what I mean? It's like thinking the difference between those worlds.
Incomprehensible. Trust me.
Wonderful, isn't it? It's absolutely wonderful.
No, people go, oh, you know, when you come in, when you get clean, one of the first things they say to you within most 12-step fellowships is that you'll get a life beyond your wildest dreams. And that doesn't mean Lamborghinis and flash houses.
I seem to remember my dreams were very, very small when I came in.
Yeah. And you know
what I thought of was important. Absolutely. Yeah.
Today I have freedom. I have self-respect. I can love.
Yeah.
And therefore, the fact that I can love means that
I've got things I never thought I would want that are part of my life beyond my own. I have people who love me now.
Insane, right?
Horrified me. The idea that anybody would be like, no, I can't cope with that. Get away from me. Now it's wonderful stuff, isn't it?
What's wonderful is the point that where we learn to accept that.
Yes.
Because we're worth it. Those people tell us they love us because you know what? We when we accept that love, and we think, you know what, thank you, I am worth it today.
Yeah. I've got a 10-year-old boy I'm going to see in Friends tomorrow who tells me he loves me. And it's just the most amazing thing in the world. I'm like, whoa, hang on. How did I get that lucky? Do you know what I mean? It's extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. Tell me about the authenticity and the love. And we've got to finish in a few minutes, I'm afraid. I'm really into this. And we could keep going forever on this for me. How are you around that now in terms of being authentically you rather than this hollowed out shell that you were performing to people?
I think that the way that I can be myself today is just by being the most open of books. So by being honest and saying what's going on for me and being who I am and being in a loving relationship with my partner, the person that I love the most, that makes me laugh on a daily basis so much, and accepting that as being enough is insane. It's insane. And you know,
and I'm guessing, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that before you could love him and be loved back, you had to find some way of loving yourself.
100%.
Is that the way it worked for you?
That's where it starts. That's where it starts. The minute that you accept that you're a good person and that you're not a pile of crap that you've always believed that you are.
Can you remember the first time you began to have that feeling about yourself?
I think that the first time I had that feeling was when I started it was about 6 years sober.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
6 years that I actually started to work on myself. Because at 6 years, I lost everything again. But we're not to drink and drugs, but to sex addiction.
Yeah.
And I did absolutely everything. And it was at that point where I got on my hands and knees and I found someone who could help me and move forward. And it was at that point that I thought, you know what? I've really never tasted freedom. I thought that I had.
Wow.
And then I really got a taste of freedom. And I just thought, you know what? I love this feeling. I'm never going to change that. And I've had my battles. Life on life's terms is very hard sometimes. You know, but you know, it's about holding on to that hope suddenly turns into belief.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's at that point you just think, wow, this is incredible. And it's about passing that on. And I just think that I'm very, very blessed to be in the relationship that I'm in.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, they would have ran a mile a long time ago.
Yeah, but you know, he's also, and I guess you know this without the false modesty.
No.
He's also really lucky to have you because you're.
Oh, totally. You know, I tell him that.
Yeah.
No, but you know, you know, I wouldn't have him in my life if I wasn't worth him in my life.
Exactly. That's right. That's it.
We reap what we sow in life.
Yeah.
What we put out, we get back.
There we go. That's the recovery statement there, isn't it? Yeah.
If I spent the rest of my life being a nasty piece of work, I would have ended up with the biggest nasty piece of work in the world. And I truly believe that what we put out, we get back. And that's a fact. If you do good by people, people do good by you.
Yeah.
And I totally believe
the only caveat I'd put on that, and again, this is something to people who are listening. If you've got a narcissist, abusing groomer in your life, you don't deserve them. Get out of it.
You don't.
All right. And just listen to the people that tell you that the person that you're with is dangerous and go somewhere safe.
You know what? Everyone will always tell you that, and you won't take it and you won't believe it.
Yeah, but it's got to be said, whether they'll listen or not. I think I have to say as a.
And you know what? Those people, you know, that's not just the way they are. That's their career. That's who they are. That's
absolutely, without a doubt.
That's what they do.
And they're serial abusers. They go from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next.
And you know what? If you are in that cycle, break the cycle.
Yeah, get out.
The best way of breaking that cycle is by speaking out.
Yeah, and going and talking to people like Tony. We'll put all your links up, Tony. We are at the end, unfortunately. We're going to put all your links up so that people can get to know more about you. We're also going to put all the links up to the support groups that are available to people. If you have been triggered by it, go on.
Can I just say, you know, if you don't open your mouth, you don't get fed. And I just think that, you know, that's what you all need to remember. Seriously. Yeah,
really do. Get that story out there. And, you know, search for help and never give up until you get the help.
Yeah.
Don't get knocked back on it. Absolutely. Always help seeking. We are at the end. Tony's been amazing to have you on. Same to you, mate. Really amazing to have you on. I've been really sort of inspired by the conversation this evening. It's been wonderful to hear. Thanks everybody for joining us. You know, we will sort of keep repeating this show. We'll put all the links. I'm going to say for now, good night, and won't see you next week because I'm on holiday, so they'll rerun something. But I'll see you live in a couple of weeks' time, folks. Really lovely to have you here. Bye-bye.
God bless.